Who is that? I'm going to sit down there and negotiate with that. I want them eradicated. I want them. Look, don't get me started. I know, Gina, don't make me make comment on your show. I don't want you to get strikes, so I want to be careful about what I'm saying. But as you can see, I'm very passionate about what I'm saying.
No, go
And I
ahead.
can
You're
go on and
fine.
on. The people, and because I have traveled around the world, the leadership of Africa are educated at Harvard. They were insulted and they were discriminated against in the West, just like anybody else. They're educated in London. These are highly educated men who know exactly what's going on, and they have more information than each of us speaking here about what's going on in their nation, and they don't give a F. I sit up there and I look at the Ivory Coast, and I was shocked and stunned that the first lady in the Ivory Coast is a white female. Now, I don't care who you choose in your personal life, we could all argue about, well, love is whatever. But when you sit up there as a young black girl in the Ivory Coast, and you sit up there and watch the most powerful female in your nation is a white woman, are we surprised that 77% of Nigerian females skin bleach, followed by 55% in the Ivory Coast, followed by 20-something% in the Sudan? Well, how does that happen? Look at China, for example. You ever notice that nobody's committing jihad in China? China get their message from Genghis Khan, who's one of my two of my heroes, Genghis Khan and Ho Chi Minh. When Genghis Khan sent out an emissary against I think it was the Turkish, who were then, I forget what they were called back then. They were the Islamic people. They killed 2 of his emissaries. He tried to make peace with them. He got so angry. He raised his army and he went after them. He killed the men, the women, and the animals. And he raised the place, and it was total peace. That's why they don't mess with them again. They start jihad in China. China will wipe them out. There will be no dispute. Let's move fast forward to Ho Chi Minh. And I'm building this story. I'm dropping a lot of stuff because I want to see about how we as Black warriors, how we must behave. As you know, the average Vietnamese is probably, 5 feet? I doubt they're 5'5". And according to Malcolm X, with just a musket and a bowl of rice, Ho Chi Minh told America, for every 10 of us you kill, we will kill one of you and we will win. Now, what did Ho Chi Minh meant by that? He sent a message to America. He said, we don't forget threatening us with death. You need to worry about your own bitch ass. We're coming up in there. It doesn't matter. We're fighting to the last breath. We're not going to be slaves. We would rather die. You know what? Here's the odds that I think 60-something thousand American Vietnamese veterans die, as much as they cry about that, and over 1 million Vietnamese died. But today, Vietnam is not speaking English. Their language is not Christianity, and they maintain their culture. Nobody has ever successfully invaded Vietnam in its history. The same thing with Chechnya. I watch a movie, I watched something on TV about Chechnyan women when the Russian went into Chechnya, which is a small state in Russia. And I'll never forget this till the day I die. And you know how cold European winters can be. Sub-zero weather. I saw this woman and her little daughter in a coat in what would be called a coal pot, digging a trench in dirt, and they ain't backing down from the Russians. They don't care. So until Black America and until us as Black people take that attitude, it does not matter whether you outnumber me or not. What's coming up in there is suicide attack. I would rather die if I come up there like the guy did in Beirut when Reagan went into Beirut. Remember that? Some of you are probably too young. One guy, Muslim guy, was so angry about the American presence in Beirut, he loaded a Jeep with explosive and drove it straight into the magazine of a ship and killed 471 Marines. And the next week or whatever, Reagan left and came back to America. You can't, there's something you have to do. There's not a single African nation in history that I have read, that I know of, and I want to be corrected by this panel, that has ever launched such an unprecedented attack against foreigners. Just imagine if the Francophone Africans did that. Just imagine if all those French-speaking islands, just imagine if they say, you know what, we're going to let Haiti up in here in the African Union because Haitian people are smart. Believe it or not, as poor as Haiti is Haiti has the same literacy rate as Nigeria. I think it might even be higher. Haitian people are very smart. That's why that's why France don't want them in the African Union, because they're going to bring in the battle cry. They have defeated France before. We do it again, God damn it. And we're going to rally these clowns around here. So what do? You bring in Mauritius, a small little island that's called Little India. That's the name of Mauritius. And I'm reading in the newspaper 3 weeks ago that India has now built a military base, secret military base in Mauritius. In other words, India is coming in behind the Chinese. And when they are done with you guys in Africa, look how the East Indian people treat the Africans in Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Uganda, and places like that. And that's exactly what I see them doing in the U.S. Coming in there, they're already starting to shoot and kill Black American people in their stores. I saw 2 white women, ironically enough, file a lawsuit against an Indian company for discriminating against them. When they come in, they hire 100% of their own. They don't give a F. If you are not one of us, you don't get hired. It doesn't matter. What do we do when we get in a hiring position? The first thing we do is, you know what? I want to make sure that I'm fair. You know what? I better make sure that the first person I hire is not Black, so that they don't think I'm racist. I mean, you guys could, I'm easy to rebut. All you got to do with what I just say is say, that's not true, because in my company, the Black guy came in and the first 10 people he hired was Black, and he didn't hire anybody who wasn't Black. You do to refute me. I'm raising simple observation. Remember, I'm just telling you about life observations. So I think, what does all of this mean? It means that the first thing we have to do is not only unbrainwash an entire people, but we basically have to write off, sometimes you just got to cut your losses, like in business. We got to write off a certain generation of people and start with the first thing we got to do is say, you know what? Every single African nation, bar none, that has maintained any aspect of the colonial curriculum, it's got to go yesterday. All this business about, about teaching classes in French, about French history, and not that French history is not important, but it should be a secondary history, it shouldn't be a primary history. And of course, Africa doesn't want to teach the true history of slavery, because they'll have to put themselves in the middle of that story. What exactly did our ancestors do? Now, I know about the woman, not the woman from Baghdad or wherever it is in Nigeria. I forgot her name. It's a woman who tried to stop the slave trade just after the Yoruba Wars, once she learned about the viciousness of the slave trade. But by and large, many of those people were facilitators, and many of them, quite frankly, let me just give you, I'm jumping all over the place, so excuse me, because I know I have limited time, other people got to talk. So I just want to...
Oh, you're fine. Take your time. I'm just
some different kind of stories here. The wealthiest man in East Africa, his name was Tipu Tip. Tipu Tip's father was an Omani Arab, an Arab from Oman, and his mother was from the Congo. He became the wealthiest man in East Africa from selling slaves. Now, how is that possible? You see, children learn the culture from their mother. And because his father was Arab, his father probably wouldn't be easily trusted in the interior with the chiefs. So him being biracial, as it were, learned the culture and language from his mother and endeared more of the trust of the other Black Africans. And as a result, sold more slaves into history than anybody else. So you'd say, oh my God, that's a terrible guy in East Africa. But let's talk about West Africa. There's a guy named Mongo John. His father was from Scotland, and his mother was a Ga-speaking woman, most likely probably from the nation we call Ghana today. He became the wealthiest man in West Africa from selling slaves. I think according to the history books, he had over 80 wives at one time. And what do we see then? A pattern. And Gina, being of Haitian background, can speak to this other issue here about the role of the biracials in the Haitian Revolution, written about in C.L.R. James' book, The Black Jacobins. I'm going somewhere, I'm fast forwarding to Barack Obama. We're going to stop there, but before I get to that route, let me just paint something here. You know what I'm saying? And we could go on to the history in New Orleans, people like Beyonce, that Creole family there. They fought on the side of the Confederacy to maintain slavery.
Yes.
So the role of so-called, we could go to Brazil and look at the confusion in Brazil. Believe it or not, Brazil has flown under the radar during apartheid because we were so focused and obsessed with South Africa. Well, let's go to South Africa today. One of the guys we see on TV is Trevor Noah. If Trevor Noah was in Cape Town and you called him black, he would fight you. You go to South Africa, and I live there, and you call one of them so-called colored people, call them African or call them black. They don't want to be black at all. Now in America, he comes and he rides the wave and he's making millions of dollars and he's never going to say that garbage. But you can go on and on. So one of the problems that we're having in our own community is what role biracials have played historically in destroying black movements. There's a book that came out in 2016. And for those of you who could, write this down, by Professor Pernie Ibsen. The book is called Daughters of the Trade. And she talked about the role of those people are called Lancados in history. These were Jewish people, Portuguese mostly, who made strategic marriages in West Africa with Ga-speaking women so that they would have these biracial children that would learn the language and culture from their mother and facilitate the slave trade. And one of the things that all the people here would say, well, Barack Obama, would you believe Barack Obama did less for Africa than George Bush? George Bush, the so-called racist Republican, did more for Africa, certainly for AIDS and everything, than Barack Obama. And one of the things that they put in your face all day is that Barack Obama's father is from Kenya. But guess what? He grew up in his mother's country. He was raised with his mother and his white grandmother and so on. So he's a classic Trojan horse. Let's look at Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama's brother's married to a white woman. Nobody in her family. You got to look at people, that who we hold up. Again, a lot of our problem, and of course I'm part of the world, I'm not separate from it, comes from self-esteem, and we have to be very careful about that. So at the end of the day, what does that mean? It means that we all have to have a common goal in sight, a common objective. And we have to hatch a plan. And we've got to be very disciplined and ruthless.
Ruthless.
Who deviate from that plan. We sit up here and we talk about I want to be, and I know, please, Gina, you're a woman, and I'm going to apologize in advance because some of what I'm going to say can be interpreted as very sexist. One of the things we see in Black America today is that Black America seems to be a matriarchy, and Black American females are totally out of control. Now, I was shocked to hear that because I was in Jamaica and I was sitting in a room full of Jamaican women, and I don't know how the conversation started. And one of the women said, we had a woman come from the United States. That's what she said, and came here to tell us that our men are sexist and about the way they treat us. And the woman from Jamaica said they booed a woman off the stage and told her, no, we know how to treat our men. We know that they're ego-driven, so we are not going to step up in their face like if we are them. But we have our ways of controlling them and dealing with them. And you look at cultures. I saw a video, 3 days ago, of a woman in India that was so outraged over what this Indian man, they saw an Indian man slap a woman in public or did something to her in public, that a group of them attacked him with sticks and bricks and beat him. Nobody called 911. They beat his ass. But that's not the story you will see. You will see the idea that women in India look oppressed or whatever it is because they probably do domestic chores and they probably, conduct themselves in a certain kind of way. You assume that they are oppressed. But if you look at their politics, they've had female prime ministers even in Pakistan, which is an Islamic nation. And America is still trying to get a female vice president, a president in France, which is this bastion of freedom. They've never had a female president. So, so the key thing is the point I'm trying to make is that in these cultures and nations, role definition is very clear, whether you like it or not. And when you deviate from it, you are punished. In other words, people in the Indian diaspora here's how one of the things we hear about black women in the US is I can't find a good man, I can't this and that. Well, when I was in South Africa, I remember this Indian woman. I'm going to tell you her profile, and I challenge anybody in here to tell me who black woman is more educated. This Indian woman got a master's degree at Oxford University, and she got her PhD from from the Maxwell School of Public Policy at Syracuse University, which is ranked in the top 5 in the US. And her anxiety was that her parents was putting pressure on her to get married. Think about that. Who black woman in America, the first thing they would say is, I can't find a man, I got all this education, blah, blah, blah. And this poor Indian woman is stressed out. So what does her parents do? They did exactly what they said. They said, you know what, we're going to find a husband for you. They found a husband for her. Guess what she did? She married this man. Not only did she marry this guy, they learned that he had better employment opportunities in New Zealand, and she left and went to New Zealand with him. In other words, they find spouses for their daughters and sons in their diaspora. They go anywhere in the world where there are other people of East Indian descent, and they find a match for them.
Yeah.
Just imagine if the option for so-called highly educated black females or males in the US was, you know what, I can't find somebody in New York. You know what, I'm going to go look in Jamaica. I'm going to look in South Africa, West Africa, or Brazil. I'm going to find somebody. But because of their arrogance and contempt, the notion that black America, being part of America, is anointed with this so-called American exceptionalism. We are the best blacks, smartest blacks, most well-fed blacks, whatever it is in the world. We can't perceive ourselves as, quote unquote, looking beneath us for whatever. In the meantime, this is the U.S. Immigration Department statistics, not Gopetka. You imagine my shock. I sit up there and I watch the H-1B visas and the reign of Indian people. By the way, over half the employees of Facebook are Asians, believe it or not. And Twitter is up there with about 40%. So all this time, anybody that block you and strike your stuff is more than likely somebody from India. But that's another story altogether. So you can imagine my shock and surprise when the U.S. immigration people said that the most educated immigrant coming into America today is from Nigeria. Who here believe that? Anybody know that? Because the threshold for blacks in order to be a black immigrant has got to be so high. I was looking at the earthquake in Haiti. It just breaks my heart. Haiti cannot get a break. They can't get a break, and I don't know what has happened to, and by the way, Haiti has gold, in case some of us don't know. Haiti's not an impoverished place. Haiti has gold and a bunch of stuff. But so-called white supremacy understand that this is the one black nation that defeated us, and we want to send a message to all the other black nations in the world that if you ever try it, this is what's going to happen to you. So that's why they keep Haiti in such a mess. And what a lot of people don't know is that in 1915, the United States Marines invaded Haiti, and back then the world was on what's called the gold standard. You can check it out, Google it. They went into Haiti, and they went into the Haitian treasury and took all the gold from the Haitian treasury and shipped it to then what was called the Chase Bank. It eventually became the Chase Manhattan Bank.
Yep.
Now, just imagine if somebody went into on payday. Most of us living from paycheck to paycheck, right? And just imagine if the day you get paid, somebody confiscated your entire paycheck. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how whatever it is. You're going to be impoverished in a very short time, and you may never be able to dig out yourself out of that hole. The Haitian people had a constitution after the Haitian Revolution that says no white person must ever be allowed to own land in this country, and anybody fleeing oppression from abroad will be an automatic citizen upon setting foot on Haitian shores. So what does the American do when they invaded Haiti around 2015? They try to get the Haitians to change that aspect of their constitution, and the then sitting government refused. The Americans got rid of that sitting government and put in the mulatto class.
Yes.
And you know what the story is? Well, they changed the Constitution, and fast forward to today, Hillary Clinton's brother, one of the largest partners in a gold mine in Haiti. So today we now have white people owning land in Haiti, where and the economic state of the nation speak for itself. Where under the Constitution that didn't used to be. So I think there's a lot of things that we have to deal with, but the most important thing is we've got to have enforcement, and that comes from changing the culture. We got to write off the prior generation. We got to raise the youngest generation and say, look, here's what it means to be black. We don't have an initiation right. You know, just showing up and being male and having a black skin color is irrelevant. Every Jew in the world understands the importance of Israel. They used to have something called a kibbutz, where every Jew, during his lifetime, was supposed to go to Israel and spend 6 months or a year or whatever and give free labor. It's got to be free. We need to establish something like that in Africa. I don't care whether you pick the Gambia or whether you pick Ghana or whatever it is. Every black person in the diaspora, just as how the Muslims make Mecca a part of, in order to be a good Mecca, you have to, Muslim, you should visit Mecca once in your lifetime. Just imagine if every black professional was charged with, you have to give 3 or 6 months free of your time. If you're a medical doctor, go there and give free medical service, free dental service. If you're an educator, go and open a free high school, teach free, yes. Just imagine the transformation that would happen within less than a generation.
Less than a generation.
It doesn't take that much. We have examples. Imitation is the best form of flattery. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. One of the stuff I saw again coming out of Africa that was so shocking to me again happened in Uganda, I believe. These Chinese men that are coming there, I want people to remember this. Every time you read a history book and they tell you another nation invaded another nation, what they're basically telling you is a bunch of men came in there without wives and they had sex, whether through force or consensual, with the women they met in that nation. So we have a situation in China where if you're in a Chinese prison and you want to have your sentence reduced, part of the deal you can make with the Chinese government is that you're going to work for free. So when the Chinese send men to Africa, you say, well, wait a minute. You got to bring men in Africa to dig a trench? You mean to say we can't find no men in Africa, a laborer who could even dig a trench? The reason is you're going to have to pay that African, even if you're going to pay him a penny a day. The Chinese is coming there and he's got to do it free because he's trying to work off some time for prison. And of course, when he come there as a man, you're not going to have sex with another man or you're going to have sex with the available females. And guess who those available females will be? Well, what we are seeing now is the rise of a biracial class of Chinese people in Africa as a fallout of all these Chinese men coming into Africa. And I just laid for you the story of what happened in Haiti with the biracial people, the story in West Africa, the story in East Africa. We know this from history. This is not me. If you want to go even deeper than that, further than that, let's look at the Saudi royal family. Some of you here might remember a guy named Prince Bandar bin Sultan, who was the Saudi ambassador to Washington for many years. I remember the first time I saw him, I was so shocked. I said, but this guy is black. And I didn't know the history of it, and I just left it alone. Come to find out that Prince Bandar's mother, I don't want to use the word sex slave, but she was a concubine from Yemen. The original Arab is from Yemen, which is across the street from Eritrea. They don't look like them people in the Saudi family. Those people in the Saudi family are mixed people. They're biracial people. That's why they're trying to destroy Yemen, because they know the Yemens are the original Arabs. And that's exactly what's going to happen in Africa. With the rise of these biracial Chinese people, they're going to die. They're going to identify with China, not Black Africa, and they're going to destroy you guys.
And that's what happened in Haiti.
Is there? You would hate me, don't like what I say, cuss me out. If killing me would solve the problem, I would do like Jesus and give up my life.
Bam! I love them.
What you do is stop it immediately. You tell the Chinese, you know what? I'm living in my mud hut, and I might be starving or whatever, That's the way I've lived for the last 500 years. Do not build no bridges. No, we don't want no bridges. No, we don't want nothing. Well, let's talk. I don't want any African leader who bring you in here, we're going to kill him on the spot. No, we don't want you in here. Well, okay, why am I taking such a hardline position? Let's look at the African Union itself. Imagine my shock and surprise a few years ago when I read that the Chinese built the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia. And I was so embarrassed by that. I said, well, why don't all the African nations get together as pause there and everybody chip in what they can afford and build your own headquarters? I said, what group of people would accept their headquarters being built by somebody who was not them? You have to buy in. Well, guess what? Turns out that the Chinese bugged the building, and every night the Chinese had software that downloaded every single meeting and every single thing that occurred in that building. In other words, the African leaders had no privacy. And every time they plan a strategy, the Chinese knew in advance what they were going to do. And that happened because you didn't build your own goddamn building. Well, the day you learn that, you should say, you know what? We're going to turn this building into a museum, and we're going to move into a little hut next door that we built.
But they stayed in there and trusting that all of it was out.
I'm sorry. Let me shut up. As you can see, I'm quite
right. Thank you so much, Gopet. No, we needed that. Oh my gosh, thank you so
much.
I
mean, my positions are, some people might take my positions of. I don't want to talk too much about myself because I have all this pontification. Let's look at how I live my own personal life, and maybe that might be the best indicator of whether I'm a hypocrite or not. One of the things I hear, I'm currently living in Europe, and I have no attraction whatsoever to white women. White women, and based on the job I have a higher than average income based on European standard. I'm quite sure I could find a white woman to go with, and I refuse. I'm not going to do that. That's a position, that's a political position I've taken. Yeah. But the average Black European, you think it's bad in America? The average Black European seem like they hate other Black people. They haven't seen a white person that they don't like. That's the problem here is, oh my God, it's embarrassing for me sometimes. But again, what I try to do, because I'm, I teach and so on like that. Every time I see a Black student, I try to encourage that Black student, give them a little bit more, share with them my own private resources. Well, you could imagine my shock and surprise. Well, the people always in my inbox are Chinese students. Black students, some of us Black, we have this presumption of incompetence. Black students probably think I'm incompetent. Believe it or not. So they even want to come and approach me. And the Chinese all in my inbox. They go back to China, they're sending me back stuff. To the point where somebody asked me to recommend a student for a scholarship, and I had no Black students to recommend. I had to recommend a Chinese student. I mean, so I'm seeing it from the front, from all sides. And I'm committed. I wish I could say I was a billionaire and there was stuff I can do, but I'm doing what little bit I can, as quiet as I can. A lot of time we have to do this in a clandestine manner. We don't necessarily have to call attention to ourselves, wear red, green, and gold or whatever. That, those of us, got to infiltrate these organizations and move quietly. That's how I choose to do it. I mean, I'm here articulating this to a predominantly Black organization. But I've been known in the middle of meeting with my white staff, which probably startled them, and I say, you know what? I don't give a damn about racism, man. I think that's a waste of time. I say racism was here before me, is here with me, and going to be here after me. And I can't spend my time, worrying about whether you like me or not. I'm going to get in where I fit in, and I'm going to kick ass wherever I go. I'm going to outwork everybody. That I control. Whether you like me, whether you think I'm big, Black, and tall, loud, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I don't give a damn. I don't care. Hell, needless to say, I suffer the consequences at times, but I make sure that I never depend on external validation. That's the reason why I can do that. I am fortunate to be one of those people that set an internal standard of myself that is so high, it's usually higher than all the external standards. So when they're giving me accolades for something I do, I'm quite angry at myself for not living up to my own standards. So just imagine if they think that they're putting me down or something, they might not, they might be shocked to realize how much more disappointed I am in my own self than their standard. So I'm one of those fortunate people that's have an internal, and I've been like that as a child. This isn't something I do where you hear them say, well, you gotta be twice as good to be white. No, that came from an experience I had in school. I remember I was educated in the Caribbean. We came through the Oxford Cambridge education system. And I remember when I was doing what's called A level, I walk into a room and the teacher said to me, "Who are you?" This was like a college prep school with a big auditorium. And I said, "Who I am." And he said, "Well, you're not supposed to be here." Well, I took that as a personal insult. So after the class, I walked out, but after the class, I went to the teacher's office and I said, "What is the criteria for being in that room?" So I want to be in that room. And he said, "Look, this room is for people who are doing advanced mathematics, and you don't even have the intro level mathematics. So that's why you couldn't be here." I told him, you know what I told the teacher? I said, give me a month. I say, let me sit in there for a month. And after the first exam, based on my performance, it'll be clear whether I should be there or not. I studied so hard, went in and took night to make day, that the first exam I took, I think I scored 67 out of 100. The second exam I took, I think I got the second highest score in the class. And by the third exam, I had the highest score. That is the story of my life. That's why I am able to take this what seemed to you as arrogance. That is how I have performed all over the world. It doesn't matter what it is, a Chinese, Russian, Indian, or whoever is in the room with me. I know that if I work, because there's no shortcut, elbow grease, nobody is going to outwork me, and I'm going to be in the top 1% regardless. And if we don't have that work ethic, don't take that never say die attitude. F you and your belief system. I'm coming up in there. If we don't take that attitude and kind of wait for other people to, define our parameters and tell us what we could and can't do, well, we're going to be in a position, we are in today. You look at a nation like Nigeria that has so much potential, but unfortunately, it won't be a realized potential. One of the things I teach my classes is there's something called, I forget what it is, one of these spreadsheets, simulated spreadsheet about which nation will be the wealthiest, the largest economy by the end of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things on the stuff right now is China. Everybody believes that China will be the top dog. But guess what? At the end of this century, India will be number 1, China will be number 2, and the US will be number 3.
Well, where will Africa be? Go Pet.
Well, the highest ranked nation in Africa is expected to be Nigeria. I think they rank 11th, and then up in there will be Tanzania. But Tanzania is a very interesting case, and I want anybody here to go and Google this. Google the wealthiest people in Tanzania, top 10 wealthiest people. Do you know in the top 10 wealthiest people in Tanzania, I think only 1 or at most 2 of them are Black? Do you know some of the wealthiest people in Nigeria today are people? There's a place in not Syria, in Lebanon. There's a place in Lebanon called Nigeria Row, where the Lebanese people have come to Nigeria and made so much money that they have recreated pyramids and other structures in Lebanon on the basis of their wealth in Nigeria. Some of the wealthiest people in Nigeria are Lebanese. And if a Black Nigerian goes to Lebanon, all these maids, again, you read it just like me, they hang them by the ankle upside down, burn them with lighter. I know it happened in other Arab nations, but all of them have the same attitude. They beat their maids, they do all kind of crazy stuff to us. And yet they're able to come in our communities and become millionaires. But I'm from the Caribbean, so let me talk about my ass too. You go to the Caribbean, do you know that most of the foods being eaten in Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and places like that, They're produced by Syrian and Lebanese people. What do they know about African food? We are some of the few people on the planet that don't even produce the food we eat. You can't even produce your own food. People who don't know your food come and see what you do and make it and package it and sell it back to you. Just as they done with Christianity. They come and saw Christianity, from the I forget what they call that council. The name escapes me right now, but you guys know, the people in here are conscious. They know what I'm talking about. The Council of Nicaea. They came and took Christianity. Michelangelo had his grandfather sit down for a portrait, called him Jesus, and he said it back to you. And we sit up there and we watch the Ethiopian Orthodox Church with all their imagery in it. They were the second, I think the first Christians were probably Armenian or something like that. But nobody want to be an Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. All of us want to be like the guy in Rome, right? The Pope, whatever his name is. So I mean, so we are people that do everything ass backwards and expect to get the same result as other people. So the first thing we got to do is stop doing shit ass backwards. Say, when you're a man among men, act like a man and you'll be found wanting. If you don't want me in your club, fine. I form my own club, and not only do I not want you in my club, any one of my members try to bring one of your, let me stop. I'm gonna start using language that I don't want to use. But again, if anybody has any disagreement with anything I say, I want to learn. I'm here to learn as well. I've listened to all the people, and anybody who can contradict, please, iron sharpen iron. And I want, if I misrepresented anybody, misrepresent any ethnic group, please. Let me just talk one more thing. I didn't want to look at the Black Panther, and my friends pulled me kicking and dragging to see the Black Panther. So I finally went to see the Black Panther, and there's a scene in the Black Panther that shocked me. This was a scene where where one of the actors was in a burial ground. Remember that scene where they covered him with flowers and that type of stuff? Do you know that when I saw that scene, I was so shocked. When I was about age 11 or 12, I didn't realize that the religion that they had me in was a so-called Yoruba-based religion. Oh. Anyway, my mother was convinced that I'm laughing now, but that I was possessed or whatever it is. So they took me to this Catholic church to get it. I mean, I'm dead serious. This is not Hollywood here, people. This is a true story, okay? To get exercised by the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church said that they couldn't do anything about it. So my mother took me to a woman, we call her Mother Dinah, and it turned out that she was part of a Yoruba-based religion. Anyway, to make a long story short, they took me into the middle of the forest and they drew a circle with chalk or whatever. It looked like a Kabbalistic circle. And they had candles or whatever in it, and they put me to lay down on this raw dirt out in the middle of the forest. And all these women in there, they were mostly women, singing and humming and chanting or whatever it is, and they had different color cloths around there, and the woman would wear white, different color head tie. And I got up next morning, and the leader of this religion, said, "Tell me what you dreamed." And so in my child mind, I said, "How does this woman know that I dream anything?" You know what I'm saying? And it turned out that I did. So I told her what I dreamt. I think I went back there for a second night, maybe, or whatever it is. Anyway, tell them what I dreamt. So she gave me a Bible, I think it was, to open. And then I opened it. She said me open it at random, which I did, and it came out on some scripture which she read. She told me to open the Bible again. I opened it. It came out at random. It came out on the same spot. But as a young child, I'm going to trick them the next time around. I'm going to willfully and intentionally open this thing, not at random, but in a specific place that I picked. And I opened that, and it came back at the same spot. And I could go through a list of spiritual experiences I have that you would choose to believe them or not. stuff that I've seen that I don't even try to understand it. I can't explain it. And so when people talk about the occult and some of these other things, I sometimes wonder if they ever had some of the experience I've had, because I had some stuff I don't even want to deal with it because I can't explain it at all. But all of that came under that religious experience. And the people who do that do not accept money. They don't charge a
You
fee.
just got confirmation. I was having a
Very,
conversation.
very modest lives.
You just said something that just bought something. I was having a conversation with somebody about African spirituality, true African spirituality, and because Haiti, they still do keep a lot of the principles of African spirituality. Well, I was having this conversation with somebody, and I was saying, in true African spirituality, or what was practiced in Haiti a long time ago, not now, they did not accept money. And you just gave me that confirmation. It's something that I need to go back and deal with now. But that being said, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but you just gave me a confirmation. Thank you so much. So that being said, I want to say this to you, Gopeka. I needed to hear all of what you had to say, and everything that you said was just on it. Now, he did ask if anybody have any disagreements with anything he said, or if you had a question, the panel, you're open. Please ask while he's on here. And I hope we see you here more often. This is a family. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to, about the mixed race thing, because that has been a little bit on my mind, because I know, Gina, you mentioned the experience with Haiti, and I also think that some part of the pushback you get in the African American communities also part of these dynamics, but however, the way he colored it, I actually think that maybe it's as a result of the state of the community itself. You can only they swing both ways, just as much as they may be problems from the point of history, but it could also be a salvation. I always see things; these things are two-edged swords, and it depends on what side they believe is winning. If they think Africa has something to offer the world, and we have something that we are doing that makes us appear as the winners, and we are strong, you'll find that they will shift in that direction. This is what happened in North Africa in the past. And North Africa is a good example case, actually. If you think our people are running from each other, watch out. Some of the stuff that is going on in North Africa is just crazy. So they will do their best to align themselves with Europeans as much as possible. It's just that Europe wouldn't have them. This is why they are in the African Union. So I think that it has something to do with the side they think is winning. And our focus should be on trying to give ourselves a vision and a path that is clear, that has something not only to offer to us, and that shows that we are ready to be run our own affairs. Because if you don't have that, any woman will tell you they don't follow a man just because they think the man can talk. They have to see potential there, and if they don't see potential in our people, they won't align ourselves. They won't align themselves with us. You mentioned something just now, that how some of these people were digging trenches and stuff like that. That type of attitude, we don't have it, or we've lost it somewhere along the line, where our people are willing to go through pain, subject themselves to pain for the greater good. This is what they call delayed gratification in the corridors of where people can make sacrifices for decades just to achieve an end goal. Our people don't think that way. They just want to have, maybe their condition is conditioning now. They just want to get the results very, very quickly. I said it before, I would rather live in a thatch house as a free man than in a castle as a slave. But it turns out that quite a lot of people are happy in the other way around. I spent yesterday interacting with them, and they are so proud of their privileged position, and they laugh at Africans, and they talk about our poverty and all the rest. And what they don't understand is that we are all in the same boat. It's just that you are just a in a privileged position, and that you don't even call the shots of your destiny. Sooner or later, you will realize that. So my take from his statement is that that's the only part I will have some issue with. But the part I strongly agree with, that I've highlighted before, is that people don't seem to want to do the painful thing that it will take to get us to where we need to get to. So I don't know what he thinks about my analysis of why the dual races, whether their position is quite fickle. They can change position based on the path that they believe is going to win.
Okay, can I respond for a little bit?
Yeah,
you
sure.
Respond to your comment. Okay, you talk about the North Africans in particular, and I want to choose my words very carefully. I remember I was walking down the street, and there was this woman that looked like she was Syrian or something, but she probably was Tunisian. You know how they wear their Islamic garb. And one day, I don't know what happened, she didn't have her head wrapped up, and her daughter, and I was shocked and amazed. And I responded in my mind, thank God people can't read my mind. I said to myself, but these people got N-word hair. And then I traveled in France, and then I look at the body language and posture of the people from Algeria or whatever, and I said, but these women, their body language, their acting, they look like they're like black women. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, what is all of that to say? All of that to say that we all know that North Africa was black as star. We found that the oldest, they found a child, I think it's called, forgive me, Yuan Magugag or whatever it is in Libya. That's the oldest preserved mummy of a 2-year-old black child. It's older than any of the mummy they've ever found in Egypt. So this is well known that North Africa was black. What has happened, of course, is they've been invaded over the years. And another story that's not being told is that this story we told about Christopher Columbus coming to the Caribbean and discovering the West in 1492. They never told you what would make this crazy European guy try to sail west to go east. That's not what Christopher Columbus was doing. Christopher Columbus was trying to sail around Africa to get to India and the east, which is where it's always been the center of trade. And when he got near around the part of West Africa, he got swept up in what we now call the trade winds. There's a set of currents out the coast of West Africa that at a certain time of year, it will take any ship, especially if that ship is wind aided, and it will drop it straight on the shore of northern Brazil or on the shore of an island in the Caribbean. Then at a certain time of year, the currents will flow in the opposite direction, and it will pick up that same ship and drop it right back on the west coast of Africa. So that is why that trade wind, as they call it, some people said that the trade wind in that ocean between West Africa and the Caribbean was named after the slave trade. I don't know what that is. But anyway, what happened is after Isabella and Ferdinand kicked out Islam from Spain and Portugal, just before 1492, they didn't just disappear and go away. They started raiding European ships in the Mediterranean Sea. And the Europeans were not able to use the Mediterranean Sea to trade in China. If you notice, remember Marco Polo, all these noodles that we attribute to Italy, spaghetti, that's actually Chinese. Marco Polo, an Italian, went to China and saw the Chinese eating that stuff and brought it back to Italy. So anyway, the bottom line is the Europeans were blocked from using the Mediterranean Sea, and they were looking for an alternate trade route. They got caught up in that current off of Africa, and it dropped them in the Caribbean, and they found a largesse. And one of the reasons why the West Indies is called the West Indies is because the indigenous people, some of them are still alive there, they are called Kalinago people. They look like the people from southern India. And that's why Christopher Columbus thought he was in India. And in his own logs and diaries, he referred to them, ironically enough, as Ethiopian, which is another way of what they call black people. So when we read about the Bible, about Ethiopians and stuff like that, they're not talking about that nation we know today as Ethiopia. And we hear about the Falasha Jews. They are not the original Jews, believe it or not. Up until 1934, the nation we call Ethiopia today was called Abyssinia, which brings us to the point where is the initial Ethiopia spoken about in the Bible? All of North Africa was Ethiopia, from the Greek word Ethios, land of the burnt faces. And the original Jews were, or if you look at Gamal Abdel Nasser's famous comment to Israel, he said they left black and came back white. Abdel Nasser, being from Egypt, understands that the Sudan and Egypt, that was not two separate countries, that was one country. And the Beta Israel, who were the black Jews from the Sudan, but because that country has been taken over by Islam, you know, they got rid of that religion in effect. But some of the world's oldest Christians to this day are still in the Sudan. But anyway, before I digress, in terms of North Africans identifying themselves with Europeans, at one point, over 1 million sex slaves from Europe were imported into North Africa. Again, this is a book written, I think, within the last decade or so by a white history professor from Ohio State. The name of the book escapes me off the top. They went as far north as Ireland. They captured an entire town of white women in Ireland and brought them to North Africa as sex slaves.
Wow.
The Europeans aren't telling you about that when they were enslaved by black Africans. And we hear about all many of us know the story of the Moors and call them what you want. These are people that came from what we now call Senegal, right? Right out there, that border of Senegal and Mauritania. Yeah. And they went up north, and the famous, statement by the general who burnt the ship when they went into Spain and said, "Do or die. Either we conquer this nation or we get killed trying." Unfortunately, in the name of Islam, they conquered the nation in the name of Islam. And once again, because the Arabs, that is their religion, they came in afterwards and installed themselves at the top of the caliphs. But you look at all the painting in Spain and Portugal from that era, these guys are black as stars. Well, I think I'm speaking to an educated audience here. They don't need me to, to go there. They probably need that. So to this day, as I speak, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development includes Egypt, I think Tunisia and some of these places as part of their program. So the European understands this need for black Africans to believe that they have contributed nothing to culture and society, and everywhere that anything positive and black exists, it has to be culturally appropriated by identity theft. So you go even in South Africa, the great kingdoms of Greater Zimbabwe, the white Afrikaners in South Africa said that no black nation could ever build that civilization. They actually taught their children that the first indigenous inhabitants of Southern Africa were white people. They teach their children that when the white people came, there was nobody there when they came. So I think the idea of North Africans seeing themselves more as Europeans come from the fact that, quite frankly, that's some of their ancestry. They've bred out some of the black people, and I think what is happening today in Egypt is a travesty with what's happening to the Nubian people. You guys might remember what's his name? The former Nubian president of Egypt, Anwar Sadat. When Anwar Sadat signed the Camp David Accord with Menachem Begin and Camp David in the U.S., I remember I was a young boy then, I didn't know what it meant. But Menachem Begin said, "Oh, what a glorious day this is. Since the Egyptian had the Jews in bondage, it's what a great day for peace." And, that's what I was taught in school, that the Egyptians were, that the Jews were enslaved by the Egyptians. We even got movies from Hollywood telling us that. Well, you could imagine my shock and surprise when the first word out of Anwar Sadat's mouth was, "There's no recorded history in Egypt that we ever enslaved the Jews." I mean, you know, well, of course, I'm a young child. I don't know how to check and verify that, but it kept in the back of my mind forever until that puzzle was resolved just within the last few years. Come to find out that it was the people who we now call Syrians today. I forget what they call them in ancient, in the hieroglyphics. The ancient Egyptian wrote it in their own history. That these people constantly, Black Africa has been under constant attack by non-Black people because of its wealth. And finally, one day, those people breached, ancient Egypt, and they came in and ransacked and raped, as these people do, as invading armies do. And I can't remember which one of the pharaohs it was. He issued a call to arms for all the Black people in North Africa to unite and get rid of these foreign invaders. And true enough, they did unite and they drove them out. But guess what? The route that they took was that path down there around the Red Sea, kicking them back up into what's now called Syria and places like that. Well, the Jews turned that into the mythology of Moses parting the Red Sea, and they being being freed out of Africa for where they were being enslaved. But they weren't enslaved. They came in and disrespected the people, invaded the land, and they were defeated and kicked out. But just imagine, why would they tell that story though? So they created this mythology, and the people we call Jews today, these white people, they're from the Khyber Pass up there off of Iran. They got nothing to do with Judaism, at least as in the biblical history. But anyway, I digress. So I just wanted to put some of those perspective on some of the points that Niger made.
And I think, man, there's so much. I got to go back and listen to all of this over again, especially your part. Thank you so much, Gopeka. Everything you said was so much appreciated. Whoa, thank you so much. Okay, so, so much. Okay, so, Jude, thank you for being so patient. I know you guys didn't get an opportunity to speak. You guys, so it looks like, Jude, you were here first, so tell me what's on your mind. You've heard everything.
Jenna,
yes?
Jenna, can I just say something, please?
Yes, go ahead, real quick.
Very quick. Yeah, I would like just to inject a nuance into our brother just said about Africa.
Okay.
Now, this conversation is about to be honest between us, yeah?
Yes.
And he raised some point about African, which didn't sit well with me.
Go ahead.
When he was saying, like, everything he pointed out about Africa is about the sellout leaders. But he never mentioned the leader who are resisted, And
like
from someone who just...
Yes.
Yeah, from someone who just listened to him, it's like he was pointing the finger toward us African. Yeah, but that's not true, because we know what happened to the true African leaders, especially the Pan-Africanist leaders. What happened to them? And as for the slave trade, I just learned something that as Africa and as a Back Congo, I didn't know. Okay. We had one of our king, Kangam Vika. He defeated the Portuguese, and as a result, he made the Portuguese to go to bring back the slaves from Brazil, and they brought over 1,000 slaves that they took from Congo to Brazil, and he humiliated, the governor. He made him work naked on the street and send him back to Europe.
Wow.
This is never mentioned in our history. So yeah. I just like to point out that when I talk about Africa, it's not everyone is a sellout, because there were and there still are people who are resisting, who want a different Africa. But one thing we have to be clear: we don't want to be African under European civilization. We want to be Africa under our own civilization. Because what we'll come across most of the time is like, we want to be accepted. We want to be integral of Western civilization, which is not true. Yeah, that's one the point I wanted to raise. I don't know if you want to come back.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me
please, can I
let me
talk now?
respond to that. Oh, I'm sorry. Let somebody. Let me shut up. Okay, I'll respond to him later.
No.
But okay, since I already opened my big mouth, I want to be brief. I'm aware of the woman who stopped the slave trade after she learned about it was Madame Tinubu. The name didn't come to me at the time when I was speaking, so I'm going to just put that out there. You talked about the Portuguese king. I'm not too. I'm vaguely familiar with that story, but I do know about Queen Nzinga, out there, who was also formidable, with that. Thomas Sankara actually showed the way. Thomas Sankara presented Africa with a blueprint on how to succeed without external interference.
Yeah.
We had guys like Patrice Lumumba and so on. So if I didn't mention these people, I apologize. And yes, I'm aware of these leaders, but at the end of the day, they are not the predominant examples that exist in 2021. So I'm just going with the flow in terms of who is there now and what they're doing. So, but I thank the speaker for bringing that up, and yes, I was remiss for pointing out some of those success stories.
Thank you so much, Pekka. Okay. So yeah, thank you so much also, Mr. Yambe. Yeah, we have to highlight the positive as much as the negative, but at the same time, we can't try to hold on to certain positives and not deal with the reality that we're drowning in negatives.